Whee! Hi, and welcome to Wrong Way. And today I'm going to show you how to ride seated on your electric unicycle. So let me tell you more about it. Wrong way. Alright, so I'll structure this video into 3 parts. First up, I'll tell you about the setup of the EUC and which is the best setup for seated riding. Afterwards, I'll tell you the first steps, how to get to seated riding, you know, what's your position, what can you do in order to make it easier and more safe. And last up, I'll tell you some tips and tricks if you're already riding seated, how you can improve your skill. So let's get into it. Alright, so you have your EUC and perhaps you already have a seat on it. If you get a EUC that is a bit newer, like the S22 or any veteran wheel, pretty much all of those newer wheels are pretty easy to sit on. But the best way probably for you to sit on an EUC is either to get a stock seat, if it's not included, or foam on top of the wheel to make this a bit more comfy. It will be also more comfortable for you to ride on an electric unicycle with suspension if you want to ride seated. Now the second thing that you might notice on my wheel is that I don't have the front pad. The thing is, if you want to start out learning how to ride seated, it will be easier actually to learn without any sort of pads, because if I don't have a pad here in front of me, you can see that I can put my leg way far in front of me, well, in a natural way as I am sitting on an electric unicycle. So if you have pads and you don't want to put them off, you will have to actually ride like this, which might be comfortable or might be also not comfortable, or you will need to put your foot out so you're not locked in anymore into your side pads. Oh my god, allergies. Anyways, if you do have a bottom pad, it will be easier to have it a bit more higher up and a bit more angled, so then if you make the transition into seated riding, you still have room for your leg here to bend, because if it's lower down, it's just physically not possible to do that. And you can see that my heel locks into the rear pad. If you don't have enough room, you will just need to put it a bit higher or make it a bit more angled so you have enough leeway to put your foot in and still be in a comfortable position when you're seated. With that said, once you get good at seated riding, you can sit on pretty much anything. I can sit on the 14D, on the M104, and generally it will be easier if you don't have side pads on. It's best to have the seat, of course, but sometimes if you have a flat surface like on the Sherman, like on the veteran pattern, it might be actually more comfortable for you to ride without a seat. Another additional help might be to put some more grippier material on top of here, just in order not to slide left and right or front and back on a seat. With that said, let's get now into the first steps. How to start to ride seated. Whoa! Alright, so what is the easiest way to start riding seated? And quick disclaimer here, it's important to note that number one, you won't brake, accelerate or turn as well when you're seated. So just do it in areas where you know the road, know it's wide, there's not much traffic. Number two, your visibility will be worse. So especially if there's some lower barriers, some, I don't know, bushes, then you won't be able to see across the turn anymore as much as you could do when you're standing upright. And the last thing is that people coming from the other direction might not see you as well when you're so down low. So if you're on a, I don't know, busy bicycle path and there is some railings, then again, you won't be as well visible as if you're standing up. Nevertheless, if you want to take the plunge and start to ride seated, I would suggest to you that first you just sit down with the EUC. Don't do it while you're riding. Just notice where your weight shifts when you're sitting on an EUC. So if you notice here, I'm just standing up, and then if you have a power pad, you need to just like take your leg a bit outwards and then sit down. And notice that I'm not doing it just with my leg, because that's not that simple. That's something that you can do later in the process. I actually help myself with my hands, with one hand or two hands, to just put the wheel underneath me. And then you want to be in a place when you're just sitting on a wheel, you're not moving either forwards or backwards. You want to be right in the middle, just pretty much the same as you are riding, whoa, insects, standing. Now the next step to do, I would suggest, is to find some pole, railing, well, not me as a pole. So then you can just sit down and see how you feel like when you're on the EUC sitting down. Now the biggest difference will be that you have another point of contact while riding, which is your butt. So maybe just wiggle around, see how it goes, because now not only this movement will make you turn, but also just moving your hips. So then, if you got that down, you can start riding from this position, which might be not that easy. Then when you're riding slowly, let me just ride from here, you can try sitting down like this. I'll just show you this movement really quickly while I'm stationary. It is really trying to sit down and push the EUC down below my butt. So it's not a movement that I'm like this, because this might be difficult, or trying to sit down, because then you might just break and go backwards. It's really a movement where you try to put the EUC behind you a little so that you can sit down. And once you get good at it, you won't need your hand anymore, so you can just do it like this, start riding. But first, with your, I don't know, left hand, right hand, both hands, try to push it really underneath you and then ride. So now, let's ride a little. So while riding, it will feel a lot different than riding standing up. You might want to use your hands a bit more to keep the balance, and it will be weird to have this third point of contact, which is your butt. So you might want to try to just lift up your butt a little, just so you can control it with your legs again, but then just put your butt down. So I guess we can move into the third section, which is how to make your seated riding better or more comfortable. So while riding, you can either just have your hands anywhere, or you can hold it, preferably on a handle, if you have it on a Sherman or here on the S22. This helps you just in case if the EUC lifts up just a bit much or too much, to keep it planted. If you have your heels locked like I do here and my foot pretty stiff as well, you have more control over the wheel. And you will notice that it's a lot more difficult to accelerate once you're seated. So you have to really lean forwards in order to accelerate. And the same thing applies for braking. You have to really lean back, and you have a huge braking distance once you're seated. So it will be the best if you go closer to an intersection to still stand up and have all of your usual skills. So typically I try to just stand up on those intersections, which is a bit safer for the general riding. Now if you want to really brake hard, you can also lean or hold the grab handle or put your hands behind you. Oh! But then you will really use your stomach muscles. It's not easy. It's really not easy to brake hard when you're seated. Furthermore, if you're already comfortable with riding seated, you can start to do some turns. And also ride off-road. Now the biggest benefits of riding seated is you get more range, you get a bit less exhausted if you're in a comfortable position. An alternative way of riding, you just don't have to stand up all the time. You can try putting your legs in front of you as well, like this. Then you're sitting like on a toilet. You have to just remember that you're not actually on a toilet. Important. I might also just show you a couple times how I'm standing up and then boom, sitting down. You can catch the movement from the side as well. Standing up, boom, sitting down. Now without the hands, standing up, whoop, sitting down. And really, that is one of the biggest benefits of my pad setup, because I can do it freely. Like otherwise I would hit here and I would just be able to sit like this. Once you start riding a bit faster, you might want to also hold on to something in order to have more grip in the turns, like this. But yeah, oh, it's so hard to brake. It's really nice to just stop and stick out your leg. Let me show you. Let's brake. I just leave my hand and boom. Simple. And then let's start riding. So with that said, this is my guide, my how to ride seated. I really love riding seated now, especially that I don't have those front pads on my wheel. It's a lot more comfortable. I like to alternate between seated riding, stand-up riding, and it's just really cool to have those two options. So if you're still here, leave a like on the video, subscribe to see more content like this. I'll see you in the next video. See you soon.